Oh, crap! You lose!
Good morning.
Hello, today it is me, Jack Clock, and we are going to review another shitty Zorro cereal. Listen, if you're tired of me reviewing all these, what do you call these things? These flanderizations, these ruinations of Zorro, well, don't feel alone.
You see someone that you know and they ask you how you're not really fun, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
If you're a big fan of Zorro, which you most likely aren't, you will probably hate this movie. But if you're a casual viewer or a fan of westerns, you might be able to enjoy this one a little bit more than I did. But for me, I just... By 1947, it had been over a decade since Zorro's last Republic serial and Zorro's Fighting Legion. When this movie had finally been created by the directors, America had already joined and finished an entire World War, entered a Cold War, and had created a Zorro movie 7 years earlier, one that I planned to save on reviewing for a rainy day. By this time, the serial was losing its grip over the American public, as more and more people were starting to accept more quality content. After seeing what film can do with movies such as Citizen Kane and Casablanca, as well as a myriad of other films that push the envelope of what a movie should be, these corny, cheap serials made with the budget of a ham sandwich and the acting level of an ISIS propaganda video, well, they just looked stupid and boring. It also did not help that the remake of The Mark of Zorro, mentioned earlier, was leagues better than anything made by Republic, meaning that it got the attention of bigger companies. Republic knew that it might lose its cash cow and decided to make a new Zorro, set a year or so after the American Civil War. Using a tiny budget of over $1,500, they built a 13-part serial, one of the only few Republic serials to contain such a number, as well as the only Zorro serial as well. I guess 13 was their unlucky number, as the serial did little to help them. Starring another cowboy actor known as George Turner, the movie would essentially just be another copy-paste of Zorro Rides Again. As I mentioned though, things do change a little. Firstly, spoilers. Secondly, I must stress that this movie is 13 parts instead of 12, meaning this might be a longer episode than usual. Anyways, let's get right on to The Civil War that tore our beloved nation apart is finally over. Soldiers on both sides who sported the blue and gray hung up their guns and are now looking to settle for a life of peace. One such example is a young veteran named... let me look it up for a second. Jeff Stewart. Sorry, he was so boring and bland that I forgot his name. Anyways, he decides to return to his home in Box County and meets up with his old pal Fred, who warns him of the trouble he's about to face if he heads back home. A runaway wagon rode by Kate Wells from the Box County post office soon distracts him, and he rides off to see what all this hullabaloo is coming from. Catching up to her, she tells him that she's returning to Box County with enough money to prevent her father's house from being auctioned off. By the time they show up, they witness the slowest talking auction I've ever heard.
For a bid of $700 for the whole shebang, lock, stock, and barrel. 600, who'll give me 7? 700. 700.
Gee, who knew an auction could put you to sleep?
Who'll give me 8?
However, tragedy strikes when they sell off the house to the highest bidder as soon as Kate and Jeff appear. The new owner acts like a little shit and gets his ass handed to him by Jeff, teaching him the lesson to never pick on a veteran. Jeff is paid a fine by the corrupt Judge Hyde. And if you think that's the last crappy name you'll hear in this movie, you are dead wrong. Speaking of bad names... Shit. I'm speechless. There are literally no words to describe how utterly flabbergasted I am by this beautiful masterpiece. It's so beautiful. I am so pissed off by this character. What the hell were they thinking? Listen, I get it was a different time. As a history buff, I'm supposed to know that. But come on! It's not like you couldn't just hire like a Latino actor instead of brown-facing someone. Before you tell me it was a common practice back then, previous Zorro stories had a way better track record of actually hiring Latino and Native American actors rather than whatever the hell this is. Anyways, his name is...
You have come home!
Pancho.
Poncho? His name is Poncho? But why? Anyways, Poncho decides to help Jeff out by revealing to him about his family's legacy. While the audience is still having a hard time believing that the goofy-ass cowboy would have any relations to the Zorro of old, James passes on the offer and vows to find a more peaceful solution. One thing bothers me about this scene though, even if it's a nitpick, but Sombrero tells Jeff that the costume that he keeps for him is the original costume of Zorro. Anyways, after discussing how to handle the corrupt justice system with some friends, he returns home to find some bandits have stolen all the horses from Jeff and are now planning to attack Kate's wagon. Finally having a reason to become Zorro, he catches up with the bandits who cannot aim for the life of them and starts fighting back. Little does Zorro know that all the villains wear plot armor and cannot be killed. Oh, sweet mother of Jesus! Wow, shit, this guy doesn't mess around. So, Kate's horses run off from the cart as it speeds towards a cliffside, with her looking oddly calm for a woman about to die. In fact, this actually quite happens a lot, where she's about to be violently killed or tortured in some fashion. She looks absolutely fine. This highlights a major flaw with the movie that I'll cover after the story section of this. The bandits dismount from their horses to find and kill a now unconscious Kate. Zorro shows up to defend her, resulting in the first of many boring shootouts that just consist of someone peeking their head out, shooting, missing, and then having the other guy do the exact same thing. It's like watching the film equivalent of XCOM, But instead of playing XCOM, you're just watching someone bad at XCOM play XCOM instead of you. Do yourself a favor and just play XCOM instead of watching this. One of the bandits gets the brilliant idea of doing the only reliable method of killing anyone in XCOM, and that's basically blowing someone up. Zorro grabs Wells and runs off before the wagon explodes, resulting in the first cliffhanger. Boyd, the leader of the bandits, gets off scot-free since the attack happened outside of Box County, and our heroes decided to have a road built to expand the territory of the county, making it harder for the bandits to operate. They contact the help of a miner named Caleb Baldwin. However, when Jeff and Kate go get supplies from the store owner Daniels, a spy for Don Deloro, Judge Hyde, tells the villains to intercept Baldwin and his friends. Suiting up as Zorro, Jeff intercepts the would-be attackers of the mine, and another Republic Zorro fight scene happens. If you don't know what that they look like, Zorro serials contain Zorro and one or two villains flailing their arms around and beating the crap out of Zorro until the next cliffhanger happens. In this case, the cliffhanger is having the ore crusher in the mine about to kill Kate, turning it into a gore crusher. Luckily, Zorro scoops her away from the contraption and the bad guys run off. Thankfully, the gold is safe. Jeff and Kate are getting ready to transfer it. However, Sheriff Moody, more like Sheriff Edgy, takes away the gold, claiming it was illegal. Forcing Jeff to sign it, he fools Moody into having him sign it over to the federal government, meaning it is out of Box County jurisdiction. Jeff runs away after almost being arrested for some made-up excuse, and runs away with a bunch of trigger-happy hired guns. Now that Jeff is an outlaw, the villains plan to steal back the gold without anyone to stop them. That is, until Zorro appears and gets immediately caught by a trap from the bad guys. And not the good kind of trap. Thus begins the movie's biggest cliche. No, not the cheesy names. No, not the fact that everyone sucks at aiming their weapons. Not even the time-honored tradition of Zorro being weaker than the screenwriting of Community Season 5. It's the fact that in almost every fight scene, someone, whether it be Zorro or a bad guy, grabs a chair and either throws it at someone or swings it at someone, and it shatters into a million fragments as if it were made out of glass. Also, I think we're gonna need this. Help me! Beating up all the bad guys. Help me! Zorro eventually gets knocked out right near the bank vault, which is about to explode. Luckily, he wakes up at the last moment and rolls away, with the security of the bank now safe once more. However, Jeff is still an outlaw, and the villains figure he might try to talk to Kate again and use her as bait. Jeff tries to send a letter to Kate about some mumbo-jumbo about a topographical map, which leads Boyd and his men to arm up for yet another attack. After reenacting a scene from Naked Gun, Jeff gets surrounded and captured. Quickly escaping, he meets back up with Sombrero and gets suited up in his Zorro attire. Zorro warns Kate that an engineer is working for her who is a bandit, who will blow up the entire construction site. Zorro barely survives a deadly slap fight and hillside explosion and escapes. More bad news occurs when their lead miner tells them that he has a restraining order applied to his mining equipment, meaning he can't help them unless a fine is paid. Jeff decides to supposedly turn himself in, with Kate completing the ruse by saying a stupid line in the process.
Not so fast, Sheriff. This is my prisoner. Inside Stewart and no monkey business.
I am aware that these serials of acting is not exactly Shakespearean, but keeping lines in the movie that make people groan or cringe is really easily preventable. Anyways, she trades Jeff in for a lift on the Bluebird Mine restraining order, which makes the judge mad. The villain's problems get worse when Jeff is pardoned by the federal government for all the crimes he didn't commit. The villains have had enough of Stewart's shit and decide to blow up the mine that he uses for funds, kidnapping Kate again. The villains bust into Jeff's house. Jeff and Charo fight the two bad guys, help me, and eventually beat them. Propping Boyd on a chair that surprisingly doesn't break, Boyd eventually escapes, with Zorro hot on his trail as planned. Zorro follows Boyd to the mine, where a guy who can't act for shit tells Kate and Baldwin that they're going to drown in a fake accident. I don't know why the villain would tell the heroes their plan, but then again every supervillain seems to do this all the time, so whatever. Another fight happens, where Baldwin sacrifices himself to distract the villains, which actually was a little bit sad. Allowing for Zorro to escape with Kate. However, flood breaks out and almost kills the two, except for the fact that the water moves as slow as molasses. Seriously, the water is shown to be rushing really fast right towards the two, yet when it cuts to them, the water is not even like close to them as they escape. Even the previous cliffhanger makes the water look faster than that. As Hyde and Boyd are gloating over killing an innocent old man and a freedom fighter, said freedom fighter pops in to say hello.
Finished when we flooded the tunnel.
Then when we get Stuart, our troubles are over.
Help me! Boyd and Hyde try to fend off Zorro, but get defeated in the process. Help me! The two villains decide to hop out of the window like it's Dead by Daylight and run off. Finally, though, the bad guys discover that Jeff is probably Zorro due to his voice. I'm just surprised it took around 6 parts for them to find out, though. Anyways, the villains make a scheme to anger a mob into killing Jeff after blaming him for Baldwin's death, as he was a respected figure of Box County. Kate tells Sarape that the vigilante is about to get, well, vigilante. He quickly gets dressed up as Zorro and shows up just before Jeff is shot via firing squad. The protagonists realize that the villains may have come to power through illegal methods, as they were elected in 1862 when most of the residents of Box County were fighting in the war. Jeff tries to get the records from Hyde but fails. Freaked out by this, Hyde and the others decide to burn down the whole building in order to try and get rid of those votes. A little overkill if you ask me. Zorro decides to sneak in and start kicking some ass. Help me! As the fight progresses, help me! Zorro is gaining the upper hand on the villains. Help me! The last one retreats from the fight, and Zorro is left to his own devices to read the elections that put the corrupt judge in power. As Jeff and Kate are looking through the forged documents, Harache bursts in through the door and warns about an incoming attack from Sheriff Moody. He believes that Zorro gave the votes to Jeff. However, Kate had been sent away earlier to give the records to the federal government. Suiting up once more, Zorro rides off and starts shooting at the guards. This spooks the horses on Kate's carriage and she crashes into a mountain. However, Kate manages to leap out of the carriage just in time before it explodes. Judge Hyde has no idea that the records were burnt to ashes by that explosion, and assumed that Zorro still has them. Sheriff Moody tells Jeff to talk to Judge Hyde, and having Hyde tell Jeff that the papers must be found. Meanwhile, Kate is riding around doing whatever the hell she does when she's not getting kidnapped, only for 2 men to go and kidnap her. Demanding to know who Zorro is, they decide to torture her until she speaks up. Fun fact, this was how the monster from The Ring was made. Zorro eventually appears and gets into another fight with just 2 measly guards. Zorro fights them off in a very tedious fight scene. Help me! And Kate is freed again. Finally, the federal government starts asking Jeff some questions about what's going on in Box County. Surprisingly, it took them 8 episodes to answer, as I can imagine there's probably one mailman just sitting around reading all these papers and going,
Hey boss, there's another bit of mail from Box County today. God damn it, not another one of these. Isn't his name, the guy that keeps sending us these mails, isn't he, John, James, Jake, I think it's Jeff or something. Oh, yeah, whatever. Honestly, it's all the same in my head. So, what do we do about Box County, sir? I don't know. Isn't there, a Zorro guy out there or something? Let's just tell him what he wants to know, and maybe then he'll shut up. You got it, sir. I don't know how to end this scene.
Hyde and the other scoundrels are quite peeved at this revelation, meaning that they would have to have the United States Rangers reenact the ending of the Crucible on them.
Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever.
I've fallen, and I can't get up.
Boyd plans to steal the letter from Jeff to find out who Zorro is, which makes no sense, but whatever. Jeff is busy in the middle of telling Kate to write his letter for him due to him not being able to read, a very embarrassing secret in his family. This leads to...
Our supply wagons were attacked on the way to camp.
Oh God, no! If any of you are wondering why I'm so goddamn angry right now, it's because this is what I like to call a filler episode. Zorro's Fighting Legion had one of these, and it mainly consisted of the characters sitting around for almost the entire part, talking about what happened in the other episodes. Why do the filmmakers feel like they have to add this in? Anyways, the bad guys try to come over to Jeff's house, and he does a random trick with a scarecrow, and then, wait, that's not a scarecrow? Shit. It's really hard to see with all the little dust in this movie. Anyways, it cuts to Jeff and Kate talking about the letter or whatever, and must deliver the votes to the government. However, the villains lead him to a trap, and Jeff gets captured. The guy capturing him starts eating all of his rations, which upsets Jeff, leading him to... well, just watch. You know, God wasn't an old man with a beard who wears a white dress and hurls lightning bolts. God was that. We sadly must leave this beautiful piece of art as Jeff returns to help his friend who was caught at gunpoint by Boyd. Help me! Fighting ensues, and as the four men are hitting each other in the face, help me! The lone horse in the stable seems to get spooked. Help me! Zorro is eventually kicked into the horse with him barely surviving. However, not all is good news and broken chairs, as the other farmers have been cowed into silence, not voting for the Rangers to come and help them. Jeff has finally had enough of these people's shit and decides to head out and find the real mastermind behind all this. Jeff's obvious guess is the shifty-ass looking clerk who constantly looks like he's spying on everyone.
Well, he couldn't be head of the gang.
Why not? Every time the audience looks at him, he's practically screaming, "Look at me! I'm a bad guy! I do bad stuff for the bad guys!" In fact, he gets discovered spying on them again, and only now how he's been found out. Whatever. Anyways, some random bad guys sneak into Jeff's house, which is open for some reason, and another fight happens. Help me! The villains die and stuff, and the same boring song and dance routine over and over again. Whatever. Help me! Anyways, Jeff finally decided that the shifty clerk is a bad guy and decides to ride out and go kick his ass. Hyde and Boyd, sitcom, both realize that Jeff was playing them and start freaking out. As Zorro is talking to Elan Slays Bagano, a villain goes in and shoots the guy.
So die all traitors to Don Doloro.
And engages in a gunfight with the masked man. Zorro manages to escape with his life from a suspiciously slow burning wagon. Quick, set your blasters to miss! Kate walks into the room that the carnage took place at the wrong moment and is accused of murdering Mr. Side character. Jeff contacts her in jail with something that's even more racist than his sidekick, who I've run out of Mexican clothes to give him names for. No, not like this. You'll be missed, Pancho. Anyways, Zorro sneaks into the site of the crime and gets caught red-handed by Boyd's men. He fights them off again and beats them up again. Zorro rescues Kate for the final time and escapes the building once Moody and the others light it on fire. Zorro comes back to his home to run into... Sheriff Moody and his boyfriend have finally cut Jeff with his mask down, while striking the pose used for the cover, and things look dire. Jeff finally kills Boyd, and Moody is killed by... shit. I guess Poncho, whatever, I don't care. Now, it's time to uncover the mastermind behind all of this! Oh, great. The one character that nobody suspected. Anyways, he gets thrown in jail, everyone lives happily ever after. Oh my God, this movie is stupid! Where do I even begin? Well, guess I could start with some positives. Zorro's mask is badass, and it complements the whole Cowboy Zorro aesthetic nicely. The stunt work's always a blast, and some of the actors deliver nice performances. The idea of a Civil War veteran returning home to find that he must fight a new war against a new foe is a very fun idea, and I'll have to admit, some scenes of this movie are just perfect the way they are. Alright, now let's tear this movie apart. The main actors cannot act for shit. Jeff's actor is boring as hell and is the classic Western hero archetype that later Zorros thankfully avoid entirely. Kate's actor is emotionless and acts like a robot throughout the whole movie. Poncho is, well, Poncho.
Senor Chef!
And Boyd is so forgettable that I had to memorize his name and his role to not forget he existed. The action, just like Zorro Rides Again, follows two paths. The first one is Zorro running up to a place and beating up people in a very tedious fight scene that makes Zorro and his villains look weak at the same time. Then he runs off with some kind of victory. The second is Zorro doing the same thing, yet there's a cliffhanger at the end. And let's not get started on all the chairs they get thrown throughout this movie. While there were 12 chairs in total, I could have counted all the pots and tables and other random objects people hurled at each other in every single fight that all shattered into pieces every single time. Another thing is that Zorro just uses his guns again. But it's even worse now that he doesn't even have a whip that was so prevalent in... At least Zorro, at least that Zorro shared similarities with the original character. Speaking of the original character, this movie's barely even a Zorro movie. Granted, it is mentioned who Zorro was at the beginning, and at least the character is identified as Zorro, unlike another movie I won't be reviewing. Drawing comparisons to Zorro Rides Again once more, in Zorro Rides Again, James Vega still had the Vega family name, as did Manuel. And they held that name up with pride. They were so proud of what their grandfather had, they had a cool painting of him mounted up on their wall. This movie isn't Zorro. It's just a child in a mask. As with its bigger brother Zorro Rides Again...
Get out of my car!
But you're not to yell at me. You are not to yell at me.
1.
Do it. Do it. Do it. You are facing very...
Son of Zorro was overshadowed by yet another installment of the character. This time, it was a remake of The Mark of Zorro made 7 years ago. While I'm not a personal fan of that movie, I will acknowledge that it had, and still has, a huge following, with even edgy Bat Guy taking a liking to it before his parents were killed. In fact, it's probably one of the only Zorro movies to rival the power of the Disney show and Family Channel show. No wonder why nobody cared about a ripoff of Zorro Rides Again. Hell, when I tried looking for this thing on YouTube so I could download some footage off of it, it wasn't there! Nobody gave a shit about this movie. I was so hard-pressed to even find a copy of it on the internet. I had to look far and wide to even find a disc that would work properly. At the end of the day, Son of Zorro did nothing to the character. At best, it's just another Western action film to clutter up the list of Republic serials that were regurgitated out during the 30s, 40s, and 50s. But at worst, it's an insult. The fact that a character that had struck gold with the hearts of the public in both films and literature was reduced to a forgettable, bland movie that I hardly remember after watching. And frankly, it should have stayed forgotten.
My next review is going to be the Walt Disney Corporation's attempt at the character 1958 Zorro. This film is a classic in the hearts of many fans of the character and...
Another one.
Oh, someone's calling.
Another one. Another one. Another one. And another one. And another one. Another one. Another one.
Wait, hold on, man. So you're telling me that it's called The Ghost of Zorro? It's another serial? What? But... Ah!